How will a tidal gateway producing tidal energy affect the environment and the wildlife? I needed to find the pros and cons of tidal gateways, so I spoke to some key people who are involved with protection of our wildlife and our environment. Firstly, I met with David Howard, who works in the Centre of Ecology and Hydrology for the National Environmental Research Council. David has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to talking about the effects of tidal energy and how habitats can change.
It's very difficult to say just generally, oh, it will do that. There will be a change, but the point is the environment is changing anyway. Birds are generally the things that people are very concerned about, which makes me slightly worried because I think it's a focus that may be in the wrong place. We shouldn't ignore them, but we should also look at everything else. The birds are actually opportunistic in many ways. They're there saying, this is where my food is. It's plentiful, I'm going to feed there. If it changes, if there's no food, the birds won't be there. They may find other locations, but equally you could say that they may find new locations and you could find increasing supply. And it's where you do need really very clever modelling, not simply to say, oh, it's going to get better or it's going to get worse, but actually to say these are different scenarios that could happen in terms of the wildlife. And I'm afraid you have to accept it'll change. And it's very difficult to, as I said earlier, to actually say exactly how it will change and what will happen.
David Howard informs us how the birds shouldn't be ignored, but we do need to look at everything else as well. One man who might disagree with David is Dr. Tim Melling, Regional Senior Conservation Officer in the north of England for the RSPB, which is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. Dr. Tim is passionate about the birds and the effects that tidal energy and tidal gateways cause for them.
Tidal energy at the moment is not sufficiently advanced to enable it to be built without destroying important habitats. So I fully admit that climate change is a very pressing environmental issue and that we do need to address that, but our estuaries are by far and away the most important wildlife habitat that we have in UK. These are the equivalent of our tropical rainforests, and harnessing tidal energy from them at the moment involves destroying that. Sometimes up to 40% of it will go. And at the moment it's just not time to start playing Russian roulette with our most important wildlife habitats. So all in all, tidal barrages are incredibly bad news for wildlife, and these are our most highly protected sites in Europe. They've got every protection and designation that can be bestowed upon them, so they are incredibly important, and this kind of energy is just not needed. As I've said, renewable energy is fantastic. We do need it to counter climate change, but the amount of energy generated from a barrage which completely destroys an estuary could be generated by just a handful of offshore wind turbines.
After an interesting discussion with Dr. Tim Melling of the RSPB, I met with Nigel Catterson, the chairman of the Solway Gateway project, another tidal energy project. I asked him his views on protecting the environment.
It's what gives us life. If we don't value and respect the environment going forward, we will suffer the consequences, as we're already doing as a society. So we have to find ways to get what we need from nature without compromising the environment and without compromising the natural flow of things. I suppose my generation, and I had this conversation with somebody this morning, talking to kids in schools and saying, in the 60s, the word environment it just wasn't part of our language. I'm a huge believer in what the Iroquois Indians used to say, that you should never do or consider doing anything until you've understood the impact 7 generations on.
Whether you believe what the Iroquois Indians said or not, I think a question that helps us reflect on this is that this is our environment, and how much do we want to protect it?